Hello, world. What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte, and we are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Now, before we dive in, just a really quick thank you to our friends over at Macy's for bringing a little bit of springtime to the Build Studio this past week and a half. You may have noticed these wonderful floral displays on stage and thought, man, I wish there were more of those, only much larger and more elaborate that I could go see in person. Well, guess what? Great news. You totally can. If you happen to be in New York, Chicago, or San Francisco, and this is your last weekend to do it, all right? It's an 80-year tradition. It's remarkable, seen to believe. You got to go do it. Macy's.com/flower show. Hit it up. Check it out. All right. Now, our next guest is an incredibly talented individual who's produced, directed, acted in, and wrote a whole bunch of stuff. Known for his 2004 indie breakout hit, Garden State, and for giving us 175 some odd episodes of the great Dr. John J.D. Dorian in Scrubs. I'll hold for applause. That's right. That's right. You can once again find him on ABC Wednesday nights at 8:30 in Alex Inc., inspired by the wildly popular podcast Startup from Gimlet Media. Here to tell us all about it in a little bit, the always awesome Zach Braff's in the house. How about that, everybody? What do we think? We like? Yeah? Fantastic. He'll be out here in just a second. But first, I believe we have a trailer for the show. So, Luke, let's go ahead and run that clip.
It's 4 a.m. and I am too excited to sleep. Tomorrow is my first official day as the boss of my new podcast company. You might wonder why someone with a good job, a wife, 2 kids, and a dancer's body would do something so risky. It's because I believe there's a place where I can tell the kind of stories I want to tell, where I can work with the kind of people I want to work with, and most of all, where no one, and I mean no one, can tell me what to do.
Will you please shut up?
Oh, sorry, honey. That's the person who was snoring earlier. Ow. Now, guys, this podcast about our lives only works if you ignore the microphone and just act like you normally act.
I'm a governor. I'm a British person.
Or do that.
Everyone needs to be ready to walk out that door in 5.
Wait, you're taking us?
I know you're used to Dad doing a lot more of these things because at his old job he had more flexible hours and made good money and had great benefits and still decided to quit and thrust us into chaos.
Come on back, baby.
Welcome to the Nerd Factory.
It's an incubator, babe. Everyone here has ideas they're developing. Those guys are designing a robot that rocks a baby to sleep.
Heads up!
Coming along, fellas.
I believe in this company. That's why I'm putting everything I have into it.
You don't have anything.
Yeah, but it's all in there.
Well, who's gonna watch the kids?
What about Ben?
I don't know. Where's the fire extinguisher?
Under the sink.
Where's the other fire extinguisher?
Coat closet next to the broken vacuum.
Okay, Soraya chokes on a grape. How do you do the Heimlich maneuver?
With the thumb side of my fist, I press against her abdomen and exert pressure until the grape is expelled.
Wow. Is that right?
What do I know? I'm not a paramedic. The company's going great. All we need is a name.
Fire.
Ooh, I like that. Like stories around the campfire.
No, like the bacon's on fire.
Dad, I don't feel good.
Your temperature is 135 degrees.
I told you it was a doozy.
I'm scared. We have so much riding on this. Our savings, this house, our careers.
Maybe this is why you shouldn't start a company when you're a 37-year-old dad.
Nobody thinks radio is cool, but when you do it, it's amazing. What did I say?
Exactly what I needed to hear.
This is a completely normal workplace.
Heads up!
Kids, drum roll. When you put your heart and soul into something, it can be tough to release it into the world. And in the end, the people you love may make your life difficult.
Whoa.
Well, indeed. But today, I succeeded not in spite of my family, but because of them. Shh. Sorry, honey.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Zach Braff. Come on.
Honey?
Nice technique, the princess wave. That's nice.
I always do the princess wave.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. Was it all of your press? That's how you greet your fans?
Yeah, when I walk down the street, I live in the neighborhood here, so I just walk down Broadway. No one even knows what I'm doing or why I'm doing it.
It's just a precautionary move in case someone's waving.
Someone were to recognize me, I want them to know that I'm waving.
That's fantastic. Zach, congratulations.
It's a very big picture of me. I can see my pores.
Do you want to make? We can make it larger.
I should have had lip gloss on. Look at that.
We can zoom in if you want to.
I don't like the Photoshop work on that.
Congratulations on this fantastic show, this massive photo, everything. I got a chance to see a couple episodes, and I really do love it. I want to get into the show and talk about the whole process. Before we get into any of that, just how are you? How's Zach?
Zach's good. This is very exciting. You know, we premiered last week, and we did very well. It's a very competitive landscape television these days, so you're just happy when the show has a good premiere, and the second one is on tonight. So it's thrilling. We worked so hard on it. Yeah. But of course, I want to go anywhere and everywhere to tell people about it because I'm really proud of it. And you know, sometimes you work so hard on something and it doesn't come out great, and you're like, okay, it is what it is. But this, I think it's great, and I want it to stay on. So I'll do anything and everything.
And thus that brings you to us.
Yes.
You'll do anything.
But you actually have like a zillion like viewers. I've done things where like you have 2 people that listen to your podcast. I'm there.
I'm in. I've got it. Well, regardless of all that, we're still grateful to have you here and excited that you're here with us. It's so nice to have you on the show to talk about this amazing project. Let's start from the beginning. I heard somewhere that you got turned on to this because producer showed you the podcast. Is that right?
Yes. I went to a meeting with John Davis, who's a big TV and film producer, and we have another project we were working on. And he said, I don't know if you're interested in coming back to TV right now or what you're thinking about, but we just optioned this podcast called Startup, and I really think you should listen to it. So on the way home, I listened to this podcast, which is the real story of Alex Blumberg, who worked at This American Life. And right when podcasts started exploding, he said to himself, you know, someone needs to make like a podcast channel, like an HBO of podcasts that can get financing and can fund these things and make more expensive ones, and like that can fund research and staff, and of course figure out how to monetize them. And he said, well, maybe I should do that. But he knew nothing about starting a business, nothing at all. So his idea was, I'm going to make a podcast, almost like a reality show. I'm going to document my whole life, my conversations with my wife, pitching to investors, and show what it's like for a guy with 2 kids and a wife to start a business knowing nothing about it. And then that became very, very popular. And then the company became Gimlet Media, which is one of the biggest podcast companies there is.
So let me ask you this, and it is a fantastic podcast, and the story is amazing, but I'm curious, you put it on, you're driving home, you're listening to it in the car. What is it about this story in particular that by the time you get home, you realize this is the story I want to come back to television and
It was just so, well, I like things that are very funny but have a lot of heart. I mean, this is hysterical, and then, you know, but then just like, you know, what people liked about Scrubs, one of the things was that it could be so silly and so funny and have physical comedy, but then we would drop in and play the real stakes of situations. And we do that here too. And so because one of the things I like about the podcast is it could be so funny. I mean, it's so awkward. In real life, he goes and he pitches he gets to sit in front of Chris Sacca, who's this venture capitalist billionaire, and it goes so horribly wrong. You're sitting there and you're cringing. You're like, this is so embarrassing. And Chris Sacca is like, this is the worst pitch I've ever heard, dude. This is like... And then he goes, I'm gonna pitch your idea back to you. And he proceeds to pitch his idea back to him, and it's amazing. And we put that right in the show. And in fact, we asked Chris Sacca to come on the show and play himself. So he played himself, and in the pilot, I'm actually recreating that scene with the real guy. So there'd be moments like that were so funny and awkward, and then there'd be like these genuine moments with his wife and his kids that were just so sweet. And I think a lot of people can just relate to that thing about trying to juggle going after your dreams with maintaining a relationship and being a good father.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about the idea of Zach coming back to tell. There's been a lot of headlines on Zach's back, Braff is back.
I think
and all
it's just
this
because Zach's back rhymes.
That definitely is part of it, right? That's a huge part of it. But
I don't think there's too much thought that goes into it. Someone is sitting going, Zach's back.
Zach's back. There it is. Print it.
Well, I haven't. The truth is, I was on Scrubs for 9 years, and then I've done a lot of other things, but have not been on network television since. So
was that like a weighted part of the decision for you? Like, oh, I'm going back to TV. People are going to read into this. It's got to be special, or no? This was just something you wanted to do creatively. Like
I hadn't really. I should probably put more thought into these things. I don't really have a super clear 5-year plan. I just kind of go, okay, I'm going to do this for a lot. You know, I went and made this movie Going in Style, and then with Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine and Alan Arkin, and I directed this big studio movie, and then I was like, well, what should I do now? And then all of a sudden I was back on network TV. I don't really, I just kind of go where things lead me, wherever I end up. I will say that I wasn't sure that I would end up on broadcast TV. I thought I probably daydreamed, I'd be in some cable show, but this was so perfect as a family thing. And I think there's so much great TV now, but I do think there's a shortage of things that a whole family can watch together. And there was no reason for our show to be anything but PG and for the family, and ABC does that really well.
It's funny, even when you listen to the podcast, there's a great sensibility to Alex. He'll warn you ahead of time. This particular episode does have an F-bomb or two if you have children listening.
Yeah. Well, I think he's concerned because I'm sure parents listen in the car, and he's like, I'm going to warn you, in this episode, around 20 minutes in, there is a curse word.
Yeah, I think it's great. At what point in the process was it very...
People are still really into people still, I'm surprised, always surprised, have problems with cursing.
Yeah, I mean, this particular show is the internet. You could say and do whatever you want.
No, but I know. I just was on Dak Shepard's podcast, and I saw a comment that was like, "Oh my God, this was so amazing. Could do with a few less f-bombs, though." And I'm always like, I guess because I live in Manhattan and LA, where people curse a lot. It seems to me.
It's a different planet. All the bathrooms are gender neutral. Everybody curses all the time. Like we're just living
right.
in a
But I'm always aware
here.
when I do something that people are like, do not like cursing.
Yeah, it is.
So there's no cursing on this show.
Zero. You don't even do that thing where you curse and then blur it out and bleep it.
We don't. In fact, on Scrubs, which was pretty risque, there was so much sex and... So much sex. There was a lot of sex. There was a lot of sex, and there was a lot of risque talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember an episode where Todd, the jockey surgeon, says, he's in the room where the break room, and I see him. He's on the top bunk, and he goes, sometimes when I'm banging this mattress, I'm thinking about banging that mattress. And I was like, I can't believe we can say this on network TV. This guy is humping mattresses. So this show doesn't have that. It's way cleaner.
Well, right. Well, there's also a shortage of mattresses to bang in this show as well.
Well, yeah, we don't have a Todd character who bangs mattresses.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, let me ask you, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time that you've executive produced, you directed the first 2 episodes and star in it. Like, that's a lot of things at once.
I directed 4 of the 10. We made
4 of them.
Yeah, we made 10, and I directed 4 of them. Yeah, this was the hardest thing I've ever done, because when I have directed and acted myself, it's always been finite. When you're making a film, the script is done. This, you're shooting, you're working on the next week's script, you're editing the last week's episode. It was a lot, but thrilling, but insane.
What was something that surprised you about navigating all of these different roles? Because I imagine going into it, you've done a lot. You've made a bunch of films.
Just that I've never been so tired making something. I think just because I'm a little bit older, and also I've never done them all at once. Writing and directing is one thing, but when you make a movie, and you're like when I made Garden State or Wish I Was Here, I'm in them, but we're not thinking about editing till later. I mean, I might check, my editor's cutting, and I might check in with him on the weekend or something, or he might say, hey, you missed a shot, will you grab this? But this show, we're actively editing every episode while we're filming, because we have to get them to the studio and the network to get notes. We're actively rewriting the next week's script, and either building sets, and you have to come approve stuff, you have to cast, there's guest stars every week. So I reached a point where I was like, I can't, on Scrubs I did none of that. I was in it, and then I would occasionally direct it, but I had nothing to do with the executive producer side.
It's pretty wild. You work, speaking of Scrubs, Matt on this one.
Yes.
You worked very closely with him on this, I imagine.
Yes.
How involved were you early on in the adaptation process of because it's not a documentary drama about Alex Blumfield's life. No.
It was inspired by. We had to turn into a family comedy, so it was a jumping off point, and I was very involved. I mean, Matt wrote the scripts and with a team of great writers, but we helped shape what the show would be, particularly in the pilot, where you're really shaping what the tone is going to be, what that dance between comedy and heart is going to be, that I think people who like my stuff also enjoy. It's what I like. So I think they expect, all right, what's that ratio of comedy and heart going to be, and is there physical comedy? What's the vibe of it?
There's you guys employ the device of a narrator in this one, much like you did on Scrubs back in the day, and I think arguably it almost works better narratively here because you're talking about a guy who makes podcasts. Like it's a very natural fit.
Yeah, it felt like a fit because it's almost like Doogie Howser, how he would write in his diary at the end of every episode, or even Sarah Jessica Parker, how she would, in the end, would be writing her article. Because he's making a podcast about his family, it lends itself really nicely to he's sort of summing up what happened on that weekly podcast.
It works so well and it makes so much sense. Was there like a mini moment of debate of like, well, we're trying to do something new and different. We don't want people to think this is like another Scrubs, or did that not even enter your mind that people would draw those comparisons?
I'm sure there's someone on the internet was like, and he's doing voiceover again. But I don't know. We try not to think like that.
Yeah.
We just go, what's good for the show?
Yeah, exactly.
And also I like doing it. My voice just cracked. I think I'm going through puberty again. I like doing that. I enjoy a voiceover, and also without commercials, the show's 21 minutes long. So it is full disclosure. It is a helpful crutch because sometimes you're like, oh my God, how can we quickly tell that story? And if I could just say one sentence of voiceover, it's solved. So I guess it's also it is a bit of a crutch, but a nice crutch.
Very nice crutch.
Beautiful
Again,
crutch.
It totally works and belongs within the construct of this world. It makes absolute sense.
Thank you.
We're quickly running out of time. We'll have to turn over the audience in a second. Yeah, there's a clock over there.
That was so fast.
I know, it's flying by.
So that's like a countdown clock. Like I got an award and I'm giving a speech.
Precisely.
I'm gonna say wrap up in 3 minutes.
They play music if I don't go to the audience.
Don't play me off. This is the internet. We could do this for hours.
We probably.
I have nothing else to do today. These people look how cozy these couches are. Let's order pizzas.
Let's be clear about that. We laugh now like 14 pizzas are going to show up in a minute.
I would love that.
Yeah? Yeah? All right, let's see what we can do.
What a beautiful day in Manhattan, huh?
It's very important to me that we talk about how amazing these kids are. Because they
please,
are. And
they
I
are.
think we need.
I like having this next to me so I can reference them. Yes.
Yeah, it's a little visual aid.
Well, as you can see, we are a biracial couple. So as they were in the original podcast upon which it is inspired. So we had to not only find extremely talented kids, but have them be believably our children. Yeah. So it was very, very hard to find them, but they're just extraordinary children. And this young man, Alicia is his name, he's just one of the smartest children I've ever met. He literally has his high school equivalency degree. That's what do you call it, GED or something. Yeah, sure. He's a savant.
He knows what it's called.
Well, it's funny. He does. We don't. No, he corrected me once on it. He was like, yeah, I was like, and he has his GED. He's like, well, technically it's called a da-da-da-da-da-da. I was like, it's a GED. Just calm down.
I'm an adult.
He's so smart, and he plays the guitar so incredibly well. So we wove that into the show, and she's just the cutest child ever. And she's younger, so has less experience, but she just shocks us every day. We couldn't believe how good she was.
Their timing is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, they're really hitting the jokes
and you can see,
those lines. Yeah.
Over the course of 10 episodes, you could just see them. When you're that young and you have talent, natural talent, which they do. It's like after 10 episodes, you see them it was noticeably that much better. I mean, by episodes 9 and 10, she's like improving and riffing jokes. Oh, I swear. And we're like, because if they have natural talent and then they go to like, an intense workshop of making TV shows, by the end, they're like, they're even better.
Yeah, they're like a sponge at that point.
They really are.
Surrounded.
They really are. She was like riffing jokes, making the whole crew laugh. And we're like, oh my God, just leave the camera rolling on this little girl.
What's it
and she sings. They both sing. So we like one thing I learned on Scrubs is we take things that are really true about the people and weave them into the show. Like Donald and I were best friends, and so many of those storylines were just what we were doing on the weekend. Truly, and so we started doing that here. Like he's an amazing at guitar, and she can really sing, and Tia's fluent in Bengali, and so all these things we wove into the show. Yeah.
What was it like directing these two little prodigies and like working with them and like giving them direction and guiding them on a scene? And
I love it. It's kind of a sprint because you have limited time with them. You're not going to believe these stupid child welfare laws.
It's not like the good.
They're so annoying. You can't work her 12 hours.
Not anymore.
BS.
Golden age of television. My foot.
When I was a kid actor, we worked for 24 hours straight. No, but I don't know if it's OSHA or SAG, but she has to go to school, and that cuts into my time.
Yeah.
No, so my point is it's a sprint because we literally only have her because she's 9 for like 4 hours a day on set, and so it's like you have to get it so fast, and so it's tricky. It's a little bit of a puzzle. Like, okay, we have 2 giant scenes in the kitchen. How am I gonna get all of her material in 4 hours? So it's a challenge.
I was looking online. You posted maybe back in October while you guys are working, and this is off the heels of you mentioning that you and Donald are best friends in real life. But the gentleman his real name escapes me, he played Ted on Scrubs. Please,
Lloyd, Sam Lloyd.
Yeah, Sam Lloyd.
Oh my
Thank
God!
you.
Don't put me on the spot like that. Because my brain, it could be like my dad's. You'd be like, "What's your dad's middle name?" And I'd panic, and I wouldn't know it. Sam Lloyd. Jesus.
What is your dad's middle name?
I'm not telling you.
I'm kidding. I'm so sorry to do that to you. Right? Well, I forgot it too. But Sam Lloyd.
Sam Lloyd, who's the nephew of Christopher Lloyd, trivia.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
Who I directed too.
I was gonna say you
directed them both.
Lloyd.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. All right. Well, Sam Lloyd gets folded in. Spoiler alert. We saw that on.
Yes, Sam Lloyd has a cameo,
point.
and Bob Clendenin, who played Dr. Zeltzer on Scrubs, does a cameo. I didn't want to do the Scrubs stars because I think in introducing a new world, it gets a little confusing. Right. But of course, if we get a second season, I'll be begging them all to come on.
It's like start folding them in. Maybe.
Yeah, because I think in 10 episodes you don't want to go too Scrubsy because then it gets confusing. But I definitely will be begging them if we're blessed to have more.
Was there something that you learned, something in your tool belt from the years that you'd done, all the films and studio films that you'd done, that you were bringing back with you to directing on television, that you thought, like, oh, now that I've learned this will be much easier for me?
Well, that's a good question. I think just efficiency, because we only have 5 days to shoot an episode. We have limited time with the kids. I don't want to just. It's not my style to do the handheld zooming in and out, sort of mockumentary style that became popular with The Office and Modern Family and that sort of stuff. So we shoot with dollies and cranes and steady cams and like Scrubs. So the camera's sort of a character, which takes more time. And so that I think I get better and better at each project is, okay, I have to do an insane amount of stuff in a 12-hour day. How am I going to do it, and how am I going to do it efficiently? And to do that in 5 days, you really have to think, how am I going to cut this? Because I can't spend a lot of time on that shot because I'll only be on that shot for the beginning of the scene. So I'm just going to roll that shot for the beginning of the scene and then cut out of it and not use it because we don't have the time. So you have to be, in order to pull it off, you kind of have to be already editing the episode in your head, going, why am I going to keep doing takes of this particular shot? I'm never going to use that over and over again, so let's forget it. So that's it. Sort of editing in your head is what I think I've gotten a little bit better at.
Is that a muscle you've had to develop over the year to be able to not only do that, but then also act at the same time?
Yes.
And be present within a scene?
That's very, very hard. That's the hardest thing about it is I know everyone always asks how. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. I plan a lot. Okay. There's a lot of planning. If you're aspiring to do it, I would say you have to. I storyboard everything. I do all the camera blocking on plan it out the night before or the week before, and so I have a very solid plan. That's not to say don't have room to improvise on the day and go, forget that shot. I don't like it anymore. Put the camera here. But like if you and I are in a scene together, I can't help but be acting with you and kind of looking in my corner of my eye going, why is the camera there? It's not supposed to be there. Yeah. But then I have a way of going, all right, let's just cut for a second, guys. It has to be there. And then, okay, let's go back into it. And then I have playback. So I'll go watch the monitor and watch myself in playback and go, okay, let me do one more take. I didn't like that of myself. What's great about it, actually, what's great about it, and this is going to sound like a joke, but it's true, is that I find as a filmmaker, as a director, the hardest thing in the world, the most important thing in the world, is to make sure you're on the same page with your lead. Because if the director and the lead are not on the same page, it's never going to be good, and it's only going to be bad. So I at least get to remove what I think is the hardest thing from the equation, because the director and I are really on the same page.
You guys are...
We love each other's work. We are in cahoots.
In cahoots. Much like
the clock ran out.
Yeah, we're gonna keep
going.
going. Well, we're waiting for the pizzas.
AOL just turn off a giant switch.
There's a giant lever they pull in the back. I'm going to one more about the process here and all that stuff, because I really enjoy having this opportunity to ask you these questions, because you do so many different things at once, and they always turn out so well. So I always like opening up that book and like,
Thank you.
What are you doing in there? How's this working? So last question I'll ask here is Alex at one point learns that he's got to be the CEO. He's got to make tough decisions. He's got to sort of be the guiding light. Was there a moment for you like that, or was there a tough decision that you had to make working on this project, or sort of a realization like, I'm the guiding light on this episode. I got to just make this call and we got to move, kind of thing?
Well, I mean, 1,000 times a day.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what directing is so fun and so hard, because it's a great job. It's my favorite job in the world, because you're the boss. Sorry for the hackneyed analogy, but you are the conductor of this orchestra. Like, I'm not the best cinematographer. I'm not the best composer. I'm not the best gaffer. You name it. But the most fun of the job is that I get to hire all these amazingly talented people and then go, oh, do more of that. Oh, that's so great. Do that. Oh, I love that. Let's do another take of that. And so the job is to be like this cheerleader that gets everyone to be doing their best, and everyone doing their best fast, because we can't go more than 12 hours a day,
Don't take this the wrong way, but I think I finally understand now why it all works out so well. You are very specially suited to be that cheerleader, I think.
Well, thank you, and I love being the cheerleader, because for me, just like a conductor, I imagine is conducting his first violinist, thinking in his head, oh my goodness, this man or woman is so talented. I feel that way with people I work with. I'm watching this little girl who's discovering that she's hilarious and can improv, and I'm going, oh, I got like tears in my eyes, going, wow, look at this talent we found. Same thing with my DP. He lights a master shot, and I'm like, wow, this is so gorgeous. This does not look like a TV show. This looks like a feature film, man. You killed it. So I love that. And my composer writes a melody for the theme song, and I'm like, wow, you killed that. I love it.
That's great, too.
Yeah, thank you. Really Rob Simonson, who's been composing almost all my things for a bit, is a genius.
Yeah, knows what he's doing. All right, we're going to turn it over to the audience in like 40 seconds, guys. Alex Inc. Wednesdays on ABC at 8:30 is a new episode tonight, every Wednesday. Tonight. Actually, you know what? There's one last self-indulgent question I really want to ask before we go to the audience. Are you ready for this one? It's an obscure one.
Okay, uh-oh.
Years and years ago,
you
were working on Scrubs.
Yeah.
And two unknowns at the time, Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, in
Yeah.
the same area, they were working on a show called Clone High.
Yeah.
It was in the same like abandoned hospital that you guys were filming out of.
Yes.
And every once
You know
in a
your
while-
trivia.
Dude,
Yeah.
I loved this show back in the day, and I was
Yeah.
like, I recognize those voices, and I put all the pieces together. Every once in a while, somebody from Scrubs would duck over and do a voice and
Yeah.
work on this show. Show's out of its mind. Do you have any memories of that time, of what that was like, how that even came
Yeah,
about?
so Scrubs was actually shot all in an abandoned hospital, and it was really, really creepy. I mean, and we spent 9 years in an abandoned hospital, so I knew every corner of the place. And like the morgue was not a morgue set; it was the morgue. I mean, our dressing rooms were hospital rooms that like someone put IKEA furniture in. Yeah, you couldn't help but think like, how many people died in here? And so when Bill Lawrence, who's the creator of Scrubs, was the executive producer of the show you're talking about, Clone High, with Chris and Phil, he put them like in the mental ward wing. I love it. So they were writing their show like in the mental ward wing, and we were creating our show in the hospital, and we'd go over there and do voices.
I could be remembering this wrong. An interview they did forever ago, and they said they were in the mental ward, and like it was legit. There was scribblings on the walls and stuff.
The place was crazy. If you walked,
super crazy.
I remember there was one hallway where if you looked, there was like a tiny piece of paper, and I once looked at it. It was like, "This is to warn you that there is asbestos and da 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 and all these things why you should not be in this building." And like it was like you had to post it, but it was like posted in a hallway, no one walked down, and I was like, I feel like more people should know about this. We're not supposed to be in here.
This should be larger and further away.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
We had to put a sign up too because people would pull up and they'd see everyone in like scrubs and doctor's clothes, and they'd be like, I'm bleeding. I don't know why I held here. I'm bleeding out of my elbow.
Maybe you fell off your bike.
And we'd be like, no, it's not a hospital. Like, what do you mean it's not a hospital? Look at all these doctors. Now I'm Seinfeld. Look at all these doctors. So there was a giant sign we had to put up like, this is not a real hospital. Go elsewhere or call 911.
Wow. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for those stories and sharing.
Yes,
that.
I have a zillion.
Well, let's see if we get into a few more of them. We got some microphones in the room. We're going to take some questions from the audience. First one's right here.
Hi.
Hi.
So one of the best things about following your Twitter is seeing the memes of the bromance between you and Donald, or the old set
It's real, yeah.
and the old set photos of movies you worked on. And so since you already touched upon Scrubs characters coming back, you wanting to have them back on your show, would you also consider having people you worked with in your films in the past, like Josh Gad or Joey Kane, to be on your show?
That's a good question. I would love to. Morgan Freeman, if you're listening. Michael Caine, there's always a spot for you. I already asked Joey. Joey King is sort of like my muse. I love her as an actress. I put her in almost everything I do, and we're already figuring out what her character could be for her to come on, and Josh Gad. Yeah, I mean, like I said, when you just do 10 episodes right off the bat, you kind of like don't want to overload it with stars, because like it gets confusing for the audience. I think you want to like show them like, all right, this is the world, and then like second season is when you're like start begging people like, please come on and do a. But we had Matt Walsh was on, Sophia Bush is on. We had a couple people do some cameos, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I love the idea of Michael Caine like watching this right now and going, I just needed him to say it first.
Do you know? He tweeted me, because I did a whole thing on Michael Caine on Jimmy Kimmel, and I think I tweeted the something about the anecdote, and Michael Caine, who is on Twitter, was like, loved working with you. And I was like, oh my God, that's really, I know for a fact that he really writes that. So I like screenshot it. I was like, I mean, I knew he enjoyed working with me, but I like seeing it on Twitter.
Who doesn't? It's nice to hear it. You print it out, you put it in a frame.
Yeah.
That's my Michael Caine tweet.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? All right. We got time for a few more questions. Next one looks like it's right here on our green couch.
Hi, Zach. I'm such a huge fan
Thank you.
of everything you've done. I know you're very experienced in all different kinds of mediums, like theater, film, TV. And I'm an aspiring artist right at NYU over there. And I was wondering...
Right there.
Right there. And I was wondering if you had any advice on how theater, film, and TV kind of benefit each other, or if they don't.
Oh, they really do. That's a good question. I think, the trick is to figure out where the viewer is with adjusting your acting. That's what I always say to people, because, I did a Broadway show. There was a 1,700-seat house, and there were 3 tiers, and I have to make sure that the person in the last row of the 1,700-seat house has a good experience at the theater, and so does the person in the front row who's looking at me like this. And then, of course, in film and TV, you have to be very conscious of where the lens is. Sometimes I'll say to actors, that was really great, but like I'm so close on you, so just bring that like way down. You can do like 1/5 of what you're doing because the camera's right here. I think as actors, we don't always trust it. We want to act, we want to do so much, we want to show it. Even in conversation with him, I might be more passionate and effusive, but if we were shooting this and the camera was this tight on me, I would bring it way down, because it would be too much. It would look like I was overacting. And of course, directing Morgan Freeman was like the master of that, because there were times when I would be shooting Morgan and I'd be thinking like, God, I don't want to like give Morgan an acting note, but it looks like he's not doing anything. And then you'd go look back at the footage and you'd be like, oh my God, he's doing so much, because he's a master of knowing where the lens is on him and how much he needs to adjust and do things.
Would you say that was your greatest challenge working on that film, was you had these legends that you had to direct, and it's just like...
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I had only made indie films, with small budgets before, and all of a sudden I'm like directing Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, Alan Arkin, Christopher Lloyd, Anne Margaret, Matt Dillon, in a bank heist action comedy in Manhattan, in Brooklyn and Manhattan in the summer. So yeah, I would like car chases. I mean, I'd never done anything like that before. That was really, really hard, but fun. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. We have time for, looks like one more. I'm getting the signal, and it's going to be, right here.
Hi, since you play a dad on Alex Inc., I was wondering, what are your favorite TV dads?
Oh, that's a great question. The first one that comes to mind is Michael Gross on Family Ties. I really loved Family Ties when I was growing up. Mr. Drummond, because Different Strokes was one of my favorite shows as a kid. And, you know, I also love Bill Cosby. I guess we're not allowed to say that anymore, but at the time, when I was growing up.
Yeah, you developed appreciation a while ago.
I would like to go back to, if we could go back in time, I would say I used to love Bill Cosby. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, and thank you everyone for your questions. They were fantastic. The pizzas didn't make it, so.
Well,
I know.
Better be some snacks for these lovely people.
Oh, we've got. I hope you like healthy snacks.
Oh yeah, we got some. So there's some Kind bars in the green room.
We've got
I'll
tons
toss
of
them out.
Kind bars and Planters assorted nuts. It's going to get really crazy in here in a second. But before we let you go, one last time, Wednesdays on ABC, guys, 8:30. Alex.
Tonight, if you're watching tonight, America.
Tonight, everybody.
Camera 3 tonight. 8:30, ABC. After the Goldbergs, you're going to love it.
It's fantastic, guy. You should consider doing this professionally.
Thank you, sir.
One more time, everybody make some noise.
Thank
Mr.
you so
Zach
much.
Braff.